That was an awesome introduction to a special 2.5 days, and you guys are just special. I mean, and I don't know, 27 years and being called a fool for staying so long. What does that make my 42? I must be one silly human being, right? This is a special time, and I'm really still awestruck by the sea of faces I see in front of me. Like last night, it was hard to leave the reception last night. It was just an endless interaction, enthusiasm, energy, fun, excitement, the best of Dow and DuPont. I hugged a lot of DuPonters. Hopefully you got a lot of hugs last night. Also, where's King? Tim King, put your hand up over there. And where's Father Christmas? Sorry, David Wilkins, where are you? David, is he in the room? Was he way back there? I see you. Has John Sampson made it yet? Is he here? I know, is he coming? Well, those kind of my boyhood friends at Dow. I mean, we grew up together, and I don't know how you all feel about being here, Tim and David and soon to be John. I feel great that you're here, and I look forward to your panel a little later on and imparting some of your wisdom about Dow then and maybe Dow now, and what does that mean to the sea of people in front of me who many of you are quite new to our company. And you're not unusual. We have a lot of young, new blood in the company. 40% of our company has been with us less than 5 years. This is a refresh and recommit moment in so many ways for our company and so many ways for the people in this room to commit. I tell you, to be members of this Dow family, I'm biased, and I know our retirees will have their word later. It's pretty special. You make friends for life, and it's friendships beyond even, the role you get to do and the many roles you'll get to do. You spend a good chunk of your life in one enterprise. You do it because you believe, because your heart is warm, because your smile on your face rarely disappears, because you look in each other's eyes and you know there's a special person, there's a special person. And there was a lot of that last night, a lot of that. And heaven knows how many selfies I had and where they all are in the ionosphere right now. I'm pretty sure they've made their way to a lot of places. My kids have emailed me already saying, "Dad, where were you last night?" I said, I wanted to say a Jay-Z concert, but I didn't. All right, I've spent a few moments writing some remarks. I felt this was significant in our company's history, a moment that we'll all remember. I certainly will. I have a few messages for you, and I want to be thoughtful about it because it's tone setting, as already indicated by Stefan and Keisha. This came about, this conference, as I said, 42 years of Dow. I wasn't at the 99 conference, but 42 years, a third of the company's existence. I believe our company's been falling behind, and like many of our large global US-based peers, needs help. And what are we falling behind in? Why do we need help? Well, let me try to explain. I think Dow has survived, in fact, thrived in 120 years, because as an institution, we've always held true to the values of our founder, the values of neighborhoods, communities, the values of friendship, fellowship. And we believe and walk the talk in the rights of all people. We export our values wherever we go. We always look for the best of humankind. And we set the standards for code of conduct, respect, ethics, safety, behavior, dignity. We know what's right, and we know what's wrong. And we know how to fix things when things ain't right and when they need to be fixed. Start with a little story. 40 years ago, young engineer, I was transferred from Altona, Australia to Plaquemine, Louisiana. If you want to talk about a foreign assignment, that's about as foreign as you could get. Those folk in Plaquemine spoke a completely different form of English to the one I spoke. At a company event early in my assignment, I just got there a tad late. Everyone was diving into their crawfish and gumbo, and I got to sit at a table because I saw a couple of my friends that I had befriended me on shift, and just sat with them, operating technicians, and one became a very good friend, a guy called Richard Johnson. I sat at his table, the other folk I knew. Barely 5 minutes into it, I got a tap on my shoulder, and I looked around, and there was this shift foreman, and he whispered in my ear, "Son, you're at the wrong table." And I kind of looked at him and didn't understand. He says, "Your seat's over there," pointing to a nearby table. See, Richard is African American, and what he was telling me is I was at the African American table, and I had to go sit over at the white table. And pretty much that is something I had to do. Now, I grew up in a multi-pot society. I had obviously read a lot. I had no illusions about discrimination. This was the 70s, not long after the 60s and the civil rights movement. But hearing it out of someone's mouth, straight to me, in front of my friends, I was stunned. I mean, I couldn't sit there because the color of their skin. I mean, to me, it was a searing moment, like a knife went through me, and shocking to a newcomer like me, I guess. Because what I kind of realized then is my friends at that table, were living that every day. You know, for me, it was a moment. For them, it was all their moments. Now, that was Louisiana in 1976. Maybe it's different now. Or maybe it's not. We as a company have to set the example in racial equity. We want to set the tone, look in that mirror, assess where we are, and get better. We need more representation of African Americans up and down our company because of the value that will create. Our company needs to reflect the world we are in and are becoming, not the world we have left. Now, I'm pretty proud of our record on that regard in many fronts. Gay rights, treatment of the disabled, and yes, even progress with gender equality. We've got work to do on all those fronts, but we can see progress. No doubt, generations of leaders in this room will help achieve that progress. You see, you build movements from the grounds up once the tone is set at the top, as Stefan has said. Martin Luther King didn't walk alone. He walked because the power of all the people around him gave him the right to lead. We need to lead the way in the African American community. We need to do better, and we need you to help us do just that. Fortunately, as I said last night, after getting to know this country better and respecting everything good about this country, I learned something very important, a lot more uplifting actually. America is known for its ability to adapt, be innovative, and its whole spirit of creating the better place. And one of the most important and incredibly amazing innovations is embedded in the Founding Fathers' Constitution, in that opening line, the fundamental idea that America would not be defined by its borders, but by a single enduring pursuit to form a more perfect union. A more perfect union, because we are not perfect. This notion that America is not merely a place, but an idea, was captured poignantly recently by the New Orleans mayor, Mitch Landrieu, in his recent speech about the removal of that city's final Confederate monuments, an action that has sparked controversy and captured national headlines. Landrieu refused to allow the noise from detractors to undermine that purpose that he had. He took those statues down because, as he stated, we as a people are able to acknowledge, understand, reconcile, and most importantly, choose a better future for ourselves, making straight what has been crooked and making right what was wrong. America's identity, in other words, is rooted in progress, and changing America for the better is itself a very fundamental American act. And fighting for that more perfect union does not threaten our identity, it actually reinforces it. And incidentally, do you know of a company that's been doing that for a while? Do we not go as an enterprise to where no one else dares? Do we not understand that you earn that right because you're a principle, you're an idea, you're pursuing perfection but never arrive there? Because your idea can never rest and settle on yesterday's thoughts? For me, understanding those two forces, America's ongoing struggle with race and to define commitment to progress, has been very key to understanding the contradictions for a society that can seem baffling from a distance. I grew up a very long way from here, in an ethnic and racial melting pot in northern Australia. My young eyes were not trained to distinguish people by the color of their skin, the shape of their eyes, or their broken English accents. That melting pot of Aboriginals, Chinese, Malay, Greeks, Italians, Yugoslavs, and the occasional white English person. They were the minority there. It was normal as a young person and to be shaped by my surrounds. That categorization by features is 1,000 years ago principle. That only did categorization come when I got educated by the people that own the education system. That the supreme classes that dominate society educate you in their own image, not in the image that the world demands. That happened to me when I moved to the big cities. Now, the good news is there are many people like me in this great country. Many of the leaders in this room who are not African American, all of them are like me. There are many, though, who still foment hatred, who allow the Fergusons, allow the Baltimores. There are many who've been left behind. How else can we explain an entire generation of children who grew up knowing a black man as President of the United States, but still live in this world where discrimination and racially motivated violence remains facts of life? How can we be living that paradox? How else can we explain a country founded by slaveholders, that has given rise to American heroes like Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Langston Hughes, James Baldwin, Dr. Martin Luther King, to name a few. How else can we explain that paradox? How else can we explain how someone like me can attend a conference like this, be filled with so much hope, but even as I stand here today, in my inbox, in my device, is an email from an employee, an African American, speaking to me about a particular piece of racial bias that happened to him a few days ago. How can we be living in that paradox? It's a reminder of these serious challenges that are before you and us as we come here together today. I share all of that because I really do believe we're at a critical moment in this fight. And it is a fight for racial equity. A moment when the promises of the civil rights movement of the 60s have lapsed and languished because of lots of reasons, but none of them good enough. A moment when decades of hard-won progress can seriously be reversed. Segregation, legal discrimination, and many other forms of overt racism, the kind displayed by the man I referenced in my Louisiana experience. These have all been outlawed and increasingly marginalized, but they have not been eradicated, even though we've seen undeniable progress. It would be a disservice not to honor and praise and celebrate the extraordinary women and men who have marched, who have fought, and who have sacrificed, including some of them with their lives, to make that progress possible. But at the same time, it would be a disservice to them to not continue that fight. We must acknowledge that progress has not always happened. We must embrace reality as our first step to making the choices to fix the setbacks that have been prevalent in our societies. And while overt racism has grown easier to call out, implicit racism remains much harder to combat, much harder to find, much harder to express, and it is no less destructive than the overt kind. We see this in education, in housing, in criminal justice, and in healthcare, because that's the place where minorities are at a structural disadvantage, even if sometimes by the simple force of inertia, a shrug of the shoulders, saying it's too hard to change, and no one is making that change happen. We see it in well-meaning people from all walks of life who believe intellectually in equality, but have unconscious biases instilled by the institutions, the lingering institutions that today still exist, that institutionalize racism and shape the societies and generations of children who believe it's the way the world has to work. We are here, actually, as you'll hear from Sid Marshall later, because of a fellow CEO who literally classified himself as somebody who thought everything was fine until his very good friend, an African American, told him he's living in a bubble, that everything is not fine. That's why, actually, we provoked this change at Dow. We see it also in the simple fact that the more you have to start with, the easier it is to get ahead. Privilege has access. Access blocks others. A reality that perpetuates inequality in an endless cycle. This is not news to any of you, but we need to embrace the reality of what it is. As we bring it back into our company, the environment shouldn't be shaping us. We should be shaping the environment. As with so many things, just because it's implicit doesn't mean we have to accept it as implicit. I stand before you today re-emphasizing, recommitting that we at Dow are deeply committed to a diverse and inclusive workforce. First, it's simply the right thing to do, and that should be enough. But second, as Stefan said, I believe it was his words, it's the right thing for our business model. The value we can unleash by doing the right thing is endless. Put simply, this great, great global enterprise, your 27 years, my 42, it has the potential to be so much greater if we accept the diverse ideas from people who think differently and act differently and not defined by the features that we're born with, but the personality of our individuality and celebrating the glory of who we are. How do we do this? How do we take it beyond statistics? How do we take it to creativity so it can unleash greater profits and value? How do we build a representative workforce because it's just simply so compelling? Well, first, it's critical, it's crucial that no one at any level of this company discriminates on the basis of race, and I mean implicit bias. Critical. I'll come back to that. That alone, of course, only just begins to address the challenge. We must ensure also that everyone, regardless of background, finds that mentor. And yes, overburden yourself with mentees. Yes, give a little piece of yourself to someone all the time. I give a little piece of me to 60,000 women and men at Dow all the time. I am endlessly representing you and will never stop, even when I'm not here in this role, like Tim King will tell you and David Wilkins will tell you. Because you represent the greater good. I know it. We have to come out and recognizing that those biases can be overcome because sometimes people themselves don't know they have them, believe it or not. They've just been trained wrong. They've just been exposed wrong. They just have never stood up and said, you know what, that's wrong. And even then, the fact is that treating people equally, connecting them with mentors, addressing implicit biases, that's still not enough. Otherwise, we'd be here already. We have to break the cycle of inequality that starts not just with corporate recruiters, although they have a role to play, but with the efforts to expand the supply chain outside of our enterprise walls. The supply chain's broken. The education system, people living in poverty. But here's the good news for you. You belong to a company of communities. We're philanthropic, we're generous, we volunteer. Our ability to influence communities and schools is supported. I was yesterday at the White House. Today, the National Apprenticeship Program will be launched. Huge focus on women and minorities as part of that program because your company was there shaping that program. This is a daunting to-do list. Shaping outside and shaping inside just captures a few of the things that I hope you all talk about these next 2.5 days so you can get it down to individuality and specific actions. The things that you have to do bit by bit to address racial inequality. You know, with the daunting to-do list, I have noticed that we lapsed into what many other companies have lapsed into, simply giving up. Not this company. Not now. Not ever. Persistence, resilience, courage, boldness. There is another way. Start with the hard truth that you can't do it alone, that we all have a responsibility to get the collective whole. holding each of us personally accountable to a higher standing, testing what works and doesn't work, reaching for opportunities and progress wherever we see them. That's what many of you do in so many other pursuits. We have learnt, it's in our DNA. It's why AAN was formed. It's why conferences like this are mission critical. It's why it'll be remembered that you were here. It'll be remembered not just by you, but the people you impact when you go back. When you go back to your job and begin to unravel implicit bias and unconscious bias. And we know it won't be eliminated, and certainly not in a day and not in a week, as Jay-Z told me. But in a few weeks, and in many weeks, and in 52 weeks, and in 104 weeks, and in 3 years, and in 5 years, you reach that goal and you say, I got there because I put the effort in now. Just like 17 years ago when we launched our promise to help African American communities near Dow locations, and how we're helping over 92 nonprofits, as I mentioned, a company of communities. Beyond our promise, how we are doing work with African American children in places like the Success Academy in New York City. Many of you go to NSBE and what we do there. We can impact from our roles all these places. And each and every one of us, every single leader in this room, and all across this country and beyond this country ultimately, we need to commit. Last week, I signed us up as one of 170 CEOs in this country to commit to the CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion. All 170 of us are all in. We're committed. We are going to drive best practices. We're going to learn from each other. We're going to make a difference. We're going to set the tone. We are not turning back. There is no U-turning. There is no pause. It's a straight line up from here, and we are going to get there, even if we have to carry you all on our backs. Even if it takes that. This is not an isolated moment in time. It's a CEO-led effort. It's oozing out of my very pores as it is. All these other CEOs who are ready to change this country from their enterprises. That means you. So I will conclude my remarks today with this. It's a promise, a simple promise. I commit. I commit to listen, to take needed action, and I will listen to you, the leaders of our company. You have ideas, you have insights, you know so much more than I ever will. We are the sum of all of you. Help us bring those commitments with your ideas and insights. I say with great humility that you have to share them with this executive team that's here, because they commit. Some of them you'll hear from directly up here, some through the networking. Talk to them. Tell them what you need. They commit. And we will take action as and when you tell us it's the right thing to do. We have your back. It's a beginning, but it's an important beginning. We have immediate plans to increase the resources against this task. You can't get there alone, we know. We're going to be taking some actions from the benchmarking work inspired by Jeff and the team that led us to this day. We're going to put in place some things that I hope have a wow factor, much like the wow factor of this conference. We'll soon be naming a Chief Inclusion Officer who will own all of it, directly reporting to the top of the company. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I don't get goosebumps much, but I just got goosebumps again. So that's 2 goosebumps moments in 24 hours. I hope I'm not blushing, but honestly, I consider myself that person, that role. but I understand that to cause change, you have to have visible signs that the world sees that you commit. Look, we're making this commitment for two reasons, and at this particular moment for two reasons. For one, you may have heard me mention once or twice, we're in the middle of a great transformation. You need to be here for it. And you need to go recruit the best talent you know out there to come join us. We're truly doing something great at this company. And decades from now, when you reach your 20 years and your 25 years, for those of you who haven't, you will remember that statement. This is an amazing time to be part of this astonishing enterprise called Dow. It's really the time then to do the only thing that will be between us and greatness and pursuit of perfection. That we get in our own way. That we don't realize that the only thing that matters is the human spirit, the human element. That we can't rely on government leaders. We can't rely on third parties. We can't rely actually even on society. We have to shape it. That's why I spend so much time out there as your ambassador. And yes, even in Trump land, some of you heard me talk about that last night. Inside of all of that, your company's handprint to shape the blueprint of the world we're becoming is there. We can fight bias in every form. Stand up for that colleague. Speak up about what happened. Engage a leader that will listen. Find the better people that are out there full in our company. Shake them up and make them part of the reason why this creates value. When I sat there at that table with President Obama for all those times, 45 visits to the Obama White House, I looked at him and marveled. And marveled at what? Not that he was a black man. I marveled at him for his ability to elevate, to not get rattled, to be at ease with these incredible tests, never display an ego, never make you feel he was better than you. His struggles made him better. Think about that. To get to that spot, if it was easy, many would. Your struggles and your ability to make unrelenting change and to show forgiveness makes you the leader that you can be. His rise was never inevitable, and his conduct never showed the power of his position. His pores oozed leadership, blind to the color of his skin. And speaking of sitting at tables, remember how I began my remarks about that table I sat at in 1976 with Richard Johnson and our friends? I didn't move. I sat right there. It didn't help my performance rating that year. Didn't hurt my career. That guy made it pretty tough on me for a while. He was shift foreman, I told you. Okay. It wasn't very pleasant being around in that environment. But I had Richard Johnson and a whole ton of other friends, and they weren't all black. Many white, who were in exactly the same spot I was. Whether I knew it or not, as a 23-year-old, I showed others the way. I didn't know it. I had no clue what I was doing at 23. I just thought it was a dumbass thing to ask me. Okay. I just did it because why? You know, are you stupid? I mean, you know, So look, that's what you got to do. Build this more perfect union. Really build it. You can do it. And along the way, enjoy the ride. No one said it better than this American novelist, playwright, poet, and social critic James Baldwin I referenced earlier, when he said, "The world is before you, and you need not take it or leave it as it was when you came into it." The world is before you, and you need to not take it as it was, take it or leave it as it was when you came into it. That's the only thing you leave behind. And I can think of no better note to make it clear what your commitment is as you come into this conference. Okay? You leave and take all the things you learnt and put them behind you and change for the better the things that before now maybe you didn't realize you were empowered to do. Thank you on behalf of the women and men at Dow. We are all going to be better from this conference. Thank you very much.